Welcome to our DIY install of Zipwakes Series S on an Axopar 28. The install itself is actually quite straightforward. The instructions are super clear and all colour coded. The only part of the install that does test your patience is installing the new wiring, but it's nothing a tub of grease and a lot of swearing can't solve. You can see here that we've removed the original trim tabs and have filled the existing screw holes and mounts for the piston and the trim tabs themselves. Once the resin has dried, we've then gone to measure out the correct drill positions for the new Zipwake interceptors. Then drilled the holes to the correct size. We've then gone and filled it with marine sealant recommended by Zipwake and installed the Zipwakes themselves. Then we've routed the control panel and wiring whilst utilising the existing trim tab wiring. So what we've done is zip tied on the new to the existing and then pulled it through. It takes a little bit of time and patience, but hopefully in the end it'll all be worth it. With the wiring guides in place and everything sealed, the outside part of the job is now complete, and we can stand back and revel in the joy of how clean our hull is from our happy hull protector. Look at it, you could eat your dinner off that. The final job is to install the display and control unit for the Zipwakes. We've taken out our original trim tab controller. The hull was slightly undersized, so we opened it up with a jig. The dashboard is now ready for the Zipwake control unit to be screwed into place. The boat's now ready to be put back in the water. Here we are in Brighton. Sunny, wet, windy, typical UK day. We're about to go and review the Zipwakes that we recently installed on our own Axopar 28. We've kind of wanted to work with this brand for a while, purely because it's symbiotic with what our own brand represents, bringing a little bit more eco to leisure boating. I'm going to make the boat jump on a plane a bit quicker, I'm going to keep it stable. We're hopeful that it's going to yield good results and work well with our own happy hull protectors. The boat itself, our Axopar 28, is pretty stable already, and it had trim tabs on that were working perfectly fine, but there's no automation in the process. We're hopeful that this will just smooth out the ride a little bit, gives a little bit more fuel economy. Yeah, let's go and have a look. This is the boat, sitting on one of our happy hull protectors, so you don't need to apply any anti-foul. Let's walk around to the back. Here we go, you can just about see them down there, protected by the happy hull. Okay, let's hop aboard and take it for a spin. Well, I just thought I'd show you how to operate the actual control unit. You can see it's really straightforward. It turns on really quickly. You can press OK and it'll clear that screen if you want to go a little bit quicker, but you know, it's a matter of seconds. You can see it's already found satellite because you've got the little green symbol here, so it's happy, it's ready to go. It's on auto pitch, auto roll. It's literally you start it and you are ready to go. It's just fit and forget. You don't need even to press auto when you turn it on. I'll quickly go through the menus. To set up the system is really easy. So all you do is you go straight to boat data. You enter in your length, your beam, your weight, and that's pretty much it. And then it'll work out the right pitch curve and it'll just kind of take care of you. You don't really need to think about it. I'll show you the pitch curve currently. I might have a play with this because I'm not 100% sure that I really need the full deployment of the blades to come down to anything before 7 or 8 knots. But I'm going to play with it. It feels stable, it feels good, but I would like to test a little bit further. Here we go. So, you know, brightness, auto, you can reset the pitch and roll to make sure that it's completely even before you set off. Set your GPS source, set the units, kilometers, miles, knots, etc, language. You can customize it to what you need. Really straightforward. That's your auto roll level, by the way. You can adjust that on the fly. When you turn auto off, which is just by pressing that, this is where if you did lose steering or you wanted to just manually control the blades, you just use it like a little steering wheel. It's great. So if you lost your main steering, you can turn it left, you can turn it right, starboard, and yeah, that can be your fail-safe get home.
To deploy or retract the blades in unison, you'd use the centrally located thumb scroller.
Let's go.
When reversing from your berth, and you can see as we're reversing from our happy hull protector, that the Zipwakes are fully retracted. As we start to move off and broach the 2 knot mark, then they start to be deployed. From 2 knots it's 25%, anything over that it goes to 100%. The reasoning behind this is basically the Zipwakes want to get you on the plane as quickly as possible. I think for the Axopar, because it has very little bow rise, it's just unnecessary. I think it creates a little bit extra drag for if you're traversing through harbours for any length of time. So I think I'm going to adjust the profile of these and drop it so that they only start to come in maybe after 9 or 10 knots. So yeah, let's see how the Zipwakes fare. As you can see, it's starting to get a little bit rougher as we're coming to the edge of the harbour wall, and yeah, let's see how they get on. The zoomed in panel showing the Zipwake display it's jumping around a little bit, so it's quite hard to see, but when it does calm down you can see how hard the Zipwakes are working out there. Obviously this is a speeded up clip, just doing a variety of turns, going with the waves, against the waves, different speeds, just to see how they react. We're going along here, and the current conditions are we've got a port side beam wind, and when you look at the display you can see that to counteract these effects the Zipwake has its port side interceptors deployed, and they're varying incredibly quickly between 10 and approximately 70%, and they are counteracting the effects of the wind. So it's keeping, even though it's rough out here, it's keeping the wind at bay and keeping the boat as level as possible, making it so much more comfortable. I think the most important thing for me, the most useful thing, especially in these rough conditions, is how it completely holds the direction of travel when the auto system is on. So with it engaged, the bow stays where it needs to. The auto system's constantly working, and in doing so, it goes straight. When I turned it off, which I just have, you can feel the bow of the boat getting pushed over to starboard. That's where the wind and the waves are pushing it towards inland. Now you can see at the top of the screen the headland coming into view. When I re-engage the auto system and send it straight again, I don't see the headland, it just goes straight. This is probably the most useful feature I can find in these conditions. It's time to head back in. We can't really test for fuel economy, we can't test for turning circle. I think we've done all we can, and let's head back to port and come back out when the wind has dropped and the conditions are better.
So we've just got back from the testing of the Zipwakes. You could see the weather was a little bit messy out there. It's probably a 6-foot swell. It was all over the place. What was the most important thing for me when we were out there was as soon as I turned it off, I could tell that the boat didn't want to track straight anymore. The bow was being pushed, and so with the wind and the sea, the waves, it was just getting pushed off course, and it really went quite quickly. So if you've got any distance to go, so we're only about 2 hours away from the Isle of Wight in Southampton, and to get there, if the weather turns, knowing that we've got the Zipwake system on and you can get there without being exhausted because you're constantly having to fight the steering and move the boat in the direction that you want, you know, that's a pretty big thing. You're not going to be fatigued, you're going to be a bit more relaxed. Also, it really stops the listing. Even though we were going over some big waves and big swell, the boat was always trying to go back to a nice even keel. It made a huge difference. What we are going to do is we're going to go back out when it's a little bit smoother, a bit of a nicer day. We're going to assess it for the fuel economy side of things, because that you couldn't really test it in those conditions, because you're up and down off the plane, big swell, the hull's leaving the water. You know, there's no real way of being a fair test. But overall, I'm really impressed with it. I'm just looking forward to taking it out when it's smooth and seeing exactly what it can do for fuel economy, and yeah, keep that ride nice and compliant for when the waves aren't quite as big.
Okay, so we've finally got a weather window. 6 weeks later, it's the start of December. Beautiful morning. The wind has died, so we're heading back out to sea. Today's test was to see what difference the Zipwakes make in calmer conditions. We've already been out in rougher seas and they handled really well in keeping the boat tracking straight and also keeping it nice and level. In these calmer conditions, we were trying to see whether the fuel economy would be affected or getting onto the plane times would be any quicker. Spoiler alert, the effects of the Zipwakes in calmer conditions were nowhere near as dramatic as they were in the rougher seas. We got onto a plane at the same speed, the tightness of the turns were very similar, immeasurable really when we look back at the footage, and the economy negligibly better as you were getting onto a plane. Now, I don't put this as a negative to the Zipwakes, this is more of a positive to how efficient the Axopar hull is.
Okay, so final thoughts on the Zipwake install for this Axopar 28. Yeah, I really like it. It's not transformative like it would be on a deep V hull with regards to efficiency and getting on a plane quicker, but that's really testament to how good the Axopar hull already is. It naturally just jumps on a plane and it's a very stable platform. What I did really like about the Zipwakes on here was the fact that it's so stable. It really controls the listing when you're out. If there's any beam on wind where you'd naturally the boat would tilt towards, or any waves that naturally want to push it over, it just, when it's on auto, it just keeps it super stable. And yeah, it just works really well. And alongside that, alongside the list control, which also works excellently if the boat's not particularly well loaded, mainly if you have got people moving around the boat, then the boat's naturally going to list. But yeah, the auto feature just keeps it super stable. So yeah, great on that front. What's also good is when you are out in the not perfect weather, the list control itself is excellent, but alongside this, because the boat is staying at an even keel, your directional ability to stay in a straight line where you've pointed it, it really is aided by this auto system of the Zipwakes. You point the boat where you want to go, you put the auto on and it'll keep you there. If you turn the auto off, you can see the bow of the boat just gets pushed towards the wind or the waves or wherever you've got the weather coming in from. It's just getting moved around, and then you put the auto back on, boom, it goes straight to exactly where you want it. For the listing, for the control in bad weather, it's just so worth it. And the fact that it's an easy install, it's all automated, you turn the ignition on, it's already fired up, it's super quick at reacting. It's a win for me for sure. It's definitely worthwhile. So if you're thinking of replacing your current trim tabs, they've failed, or you just want to try a new tech, then the Zipwakes for sure, yeah, really work well.